I got a patron request from Morgan to review the Terry Gilliam movie Time Bandits. I've enjoyed many films directed by Gilliam, including Brazil, The Fisher King, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, 12 Monkeys, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and even the Don Quixote movie he finally finished. However, when I saw Time Bandits many years ago, it did not do much for me. I do not remember why, and I've been curious to revisit the film, so I was happy to get this request and give it another look through fresh eyes. While there's certainly elements of Time Bandits to admire, this viewing did remind me why it underwhelmed me. I do want to talk about the positives first, though. It's a Terry Gilliam film, so it naturally has a lot of visual imagination. The premise of the film, of this young boy and a group of bandits traveling to different time periods, lends itself well to that. The production design is spectacular, with each set and location fitting the world inhabited by these characters. Even though Gilliam has an identifiable style, he has always made sure his films look distinct from one another. The storybook feel of Time Bandits is different from the industrial and futuristic look of Brazil, which is different from the deserts and hotels occupied by drug-addled journalists in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And even though his films usually focus on a character trying to make their way through a strange world that's constantly throwing obstacles at them, their goals and motivations are not the same. Throughout Time Bandits, several notable actors appear in roles, with many turning in nice work. John Cleese is very funny as Robin Hood, his performance apparently based on the British royal family when they have to greet a line of people. There's also a funny contrast between Robin's cheery demeanor and his more brutish merry men. Sean Connery has a nice role as the Greek king Agamemnon as he forms a sweet friendship with the lead character Kevin. Michael Palin, who also co-wrote the movie, and Shelley Duvall show up a few times as a couple, and they have a bit of humorous banter between them. Meanwhile, Ralph Richardson is wonderful as a no-nonsense god, and David Warner gets to have fun chewing the scenery as the evil villain pursuing the bandits in order to attain a map. So even with all these delights, where does Time Bandits end up disappointing me? Well, the movie has an extremely episodic structure as the characters hop from one place to another. A lot of the time, as soon as we're settled in one place, they're whisked off to the next time period. The Greece section is probably given the most time out of all the historical periods they visit, and as such, it's my favorite section of the movie. In a lot of the other ones, they meet a famous figure, there's a bit of a comedic situation, they jump into a portal, and then it's on to the next spot. This almost sketch comedy feel can probably be attributed to half the Monty Python team being involved in Time Bandits, and that influence from the group is definitely still there, even as Gilliam was looking to move on to his solo directing career. The episodic nature of the film is not too much of a negative, though. My biggest criticism of Time Bandits is I just don't find the central protagonist to be that interesting. Kevin is obviously meant to be an avatar for the audience, and Gilliam specifically wanted the movie to feel like it was told from a child's point of view. It's easy for a child to project themselves onto Kevin, but he does not have too much of a personality outside of an indication early on that he's fascinated with history and frustrated by his parents. I don't feel like he developed too much during the film, with his arc ending on an incredibly bizarre note. My interpretation is Gilliam was satirizing the sort of Wizard of Oz ending where the main hero learns there's no place like home. However, I've also read multiple interpretations of the last scene, so it's definitely one of those things that's up to the individual viewer. As for the bandits, aside from their leader Randall, I found them largely interchangeable. The actors do a really good job, but I did not get that emotionally invested in them and their journey. The interest in the story mainly comes from which fantasy creature and historical figure they will come across next. There's also the climax where they go up against the villain, and I found it to be rather plodding, as most of it consists of the characters running while chaos and explosions are happening around them. The Lair is an incredible piece of production design, though, and it is amusing that the heroes are saved by literal Deus Ex Machina. That's an example of the cheeky Terry Gilliam style of humor peeking through in the story. I do feel bad for not liking Time Bandits more, because it's a movie that's absolutely in my wheelhouse, with its Monty Python style of humor, its impressive visuals, and the concept of going through time. And like I mentioned at the start, I'm an admirer of many other Gilliam films. It's a film where I enjoy a good number of parts, but does not quite engage me as a whole. At one point, Terry Gilliam did try to make a sequel, but it never came to fruition. However, there will be a television series based on the movie that will premiere on Apple TV Plus sometime in the future. Gilliam is involved as an executive producer, and the show was developed by Taika Waititi, Jermaine Clement, and Ian Morris, who have worked together on a number of projects. Waititi has also directed the first 2 episodes. The premise of the show is pretty similar to the movie, but I don't know if it's meant to be a remake, a sequel, or a spin-off. I am a fan of Waititi's work, and maybe the television series format will lessen some of the issues I have with the film, so I'm curious to see how that turns out. Now, if you've seen Time Bandits, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for the request, Morgan.